President Joe Biden's popularity has dropped to 19%, and Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren are now at 20% each in a tightening three-way race. Linda Perry, WBAI News, New York.
Welcome to Waking Up on WBAI 99.5 FM in New York City. Hello, 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 everybody. Happy Tuesday. Joining us on the program today, Richard Wolff. We're going to talk about why CEOs are taking all these stakeholder decisions into account, or so we heard yesterday. We're also going to be talking about what is happening in Newark. Our man King, right here to my right.
Good morning.
Oh, sorry. We missed your good morning part.
I know. I'm up.
There you go. He was there. We're going to talk all about that. It is 70, going up to 75 degrees and sunny. It's 64 right now. Stay tuned. Welcome to the program, everyone. I'm so happy you're here. I'm so happy you're awake on this beautiful fall morning. Still summer, but 64 degrees out there. I'm wearing long sleeves.
It was great.
I'm wearing long sleeves and white. You can do that now because it's cold enough to wear long sleeves, but it's before Labor Day.
Is that when the clothes have to change?
I don't know. That was like 1,000 years ago.
Okay.
That was the rule. I don't know if it's still the rule.
And you still have to change your suit to seersucker after when the
Correct.
summer begins.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to you coming in here.
Wear your straw skimmer.
So let's just get right to it. King, you were down at the Video Music Awards yesterday. Here's some live sound from there that you picked up.
They don't want to hear the people. That's why they're here. They got Essex County Police. They got NJIT Police. They got Rutgers Police. But they can't give you clean water. They can protect these celebrities, but they can't give you clean water. Who is tired of this? Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? What do we need? Clean water! What do we need? Now! What do we need? Clean water! What do we need? Now! What do we need? Clean water!
So the red carpet was out. The red carpet was out yesterday at the Video Music Awards in Newark at Prudential Center, the first time they had been held in 35 years. And so along with the screaming fans, as you heard, there were screaming protesters. Mm-hmm. So the group, which included the Newark Water Coalition, the Newark Educational Workers Caucus, Extinction Rebellion. I'm still got to practice.
Love those guys.
They just started a Newark chapter, and this was their first action in solidarity. And the new African Black Panther Party all co-sponsored the march. So they left from Penn Station, and they got to within one block of the Prudential Center site. And as they moved onto the street, as they got closer, a horde of horses began to thrust and jostle people, which was pretty deep. And then they were met with a line of police, and you heard one of the organizers there really, really fired up about the fact that the police were treating them this way. In the midst of all of the stuff.
Oh, sure.
That was
Police
going
protecting, protecting property, protecting whatnot, instead of, that was so beautiful what he said. If you didn't catch it, it was something to the effect of the police can protect these stars and the police can protect this spot, but they can't bring us clean water. We have all these different police out here, but they can't do anything about the water.
So this was the closest I ever got to one of these big events. And so, from a block away, we see the SUVs pull up and see these ants get out and walk up. And every once in a while, they'd announce names that we couldn't hear. Although I did hear Lizzo and I heard Quentin Tarantino. So that's kind of a broad range.
He's allowed out now? I didn't know.
And Michael G was just saying that he was watching Pulp Fiction recently. So I guess there's
Great
kind
movie.
of a go around and come around. So anyway, these folks were fired up. They were chanting at that point, and at some point there was some civil disobedience, and 5 people were arrested. And I found out early this morning, they're all got out at 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And
What was the civil disobedience?
I can't really talk about that.
Oh,
well, I'm
I
wearing
see.
a couple of hats, so I was there in a legal capacity, and so I'm.
Was anyone there? We need you to call in and tell us.
Yeah.
212-209-2877.
Yeah.
Often those disobediences look like something like blocking the traffic or stopping the flow of whatever the event is, and then you get arrested. They play, at least in New York. Many of you know, they play you a nice recording of your rights real loud, and then they zip tie your hands, and then they move you.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, they don't beat you, and they move you into a truck.
Anybody who was there or down can call in, and a lot of the crowd was sympathetic. So now the marchers got blocked, so they turned and moved towards a long boulevard, pedestrian boulevard, where the hordes are allowed to walk towards Prudential Center, and they just blocked. And it was real interesting to see these folks in their spray-painted dresses and their little suits with their gold chains and everything interact with the protesters who look just like them. So it was.
Well, I wasn't sure who you were talking about, one or the other. So did people really wear their fancies like I suggested?
Oh, they were trying to walk up this boulevard with these tall heels on and you know. Anyway,
can you talk about, were the fans aware of the issue? What was the surprise factor from the people who were there?
Well, the crowds were small compared to other VMAs because it was in Newark, and I guess a lot of people just didn't go. But they were still big crowds.
Wait a minute. That's something to talk about in general.
Well, if it was held in New York, you'd probably have people from all over the world standing out there. So most of the people were local and then some New York people. But they were mostly people of color, and there was a lot of chatter as things were going on about, our water, and people taking selfies behind the VMA talking about the water situation, and it was clear that a lot of them were personally affected. So there was a lot of sympathy for the protesters.
Did you hear, I know this just happened last night, you were working on this, you went home, perhaps you slept, and then you were here, the first staff member other than Michael G. on the show, even after you reported, I'm going to be late, you were still here before the sun. Did you hear, I don't know if you heard, did you hear that inside the VMAs, did anyone mention the Newark water crisis on that big stage that they have?
I've been trying to scan the media to see if anything, it's probably still early, the early editions hadn't even reported on the end.
We're just waking up.
Yeah, yeah. So hopefully somebody commented on it.
And then we have clips of folks you were able to speak to. Who do we have here?
So the first one we have is Diane Moxley, who is one of the founders of this new Extinction Rebellion chapter. When we hear about Extinction Rebellion, we hear about the UK presence. What's going on over here?
Extinction Rebellion has started in the U.S. In our geographical area, they started in New York City, but we are now starting a branch in New Jersey, and this is our first formal action in New Jersey here today in downtown Newark.
Well, what prompted this to be the first action?
Well, we are working in coordination with the Newark Water Coalition to support their action today. The one thing that makes Extinction Rebellion in the U.S. a little bit different is we have the same initial 3 demands that Extinction began with, but we also have a 4th demand that is for our community to support traditionally marginalized communities and indigenous communities that are frequently on the front lines.
And that was beautiful because Extinction Rebellion, we were one of the first shows to have Extinction Rebellion on the air when they started not too long ago.
That's why it was so great to hear they were there. And for our surveillance fans, you'll note the helicopter in the background.
I heard that.
Which was circling and circling.
Wait, that was for us? That wasn't for looking at the fancy famous people coming in?
Yeah, I thought when I first heard it, I thought, oh, okay, they're doing the live coverage, the overhead shot. But no, it was circling the protesters. And those shout out to the Black Identity Extremist Action Coalition, who have been pushing, talking about this stuff. Yeah, taking back the name, and these helicopters, and maybe we should get some of those folks in to talk about how they've been circling protests and taking digital pictures and then running them back to find out where people came from and who they were. So our second person is Al Mossab, who is from the Newark Education Workers Caucus, which is an active subset of the Newark Teachers Union, and they are plaintiffs in the lawsuit that's been filed by the Natural Resource Defense Council and their caucus around the water. So let's
just to be clear, the federal action level under the lead and copper rule is 15 parts per billion, which means out of a liter of water, basically, if there's 15 parts of lead, that's the federal action level. However, that does not mean that people are safe. that even lead under that, 10, 11 is still dangerous and possibly even lower for especially young children, pregnant women, elderly, who are most exposed and have an immune system that is mostly compromised.
So in
the eastern ward, in the eastern part of the city, lead levels from January to June were between 14.6 and 15.6 parts per billion, which is right around the federal action level and definitely more dangerous.
Further in the conversation, he says that the way the formulas are set up, it keeps the numbers low, but the individual testing is way higher than 15 household by household, but the court will only accept like the top 90%. You cut the top 10% worst off of the list and you look at the 90% below that. Some formula that actually excludes some of the worst households. So it's crazy.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm sure they have some reason for that. Our phone number is 212-209-2877 if you'd like to make a comment or have your voice heard around this issue or any of the other issues we're going to talk about today. Give us a call. Our phone lines will be open. 212-209-2877. You're listening to Waking Up on 99.5 FM WBAI. It's 64 degrees and fair, going up to 75 degrees today. And down in Florida, they are looking like this cone of Dorian, the storm, which is now a tropical storm. It might make landfall there not too soon. It still has to go over, unfortunately, Haiti and the Dominican Republic. That's poorly placed country. So we'll keep our eye on that.
I was looking for the drum beat.
Right here. I keep it right next to you so that you'll know that that's what that is. Oh, boy. All right. We'll be right back after this on our show, WBAI.
BlackRock is the leading coal investor in the Philippines. They're killing our communities. And the sad reality is they don't want to listen to us.
I came here to Manhattan to attend the BlackRock shareholder meeting to talk to them about specific investments that they have made in Indian coal companies, particularly Jindal Power and Steel. This is a company that has been accused and found guilty of egregious human rights violations, even been involved and implicated in an assassination attempt on one of the community leaders. This is clearly an active investment, it's not part of a passive fund.
A BlackRock ela é investidor muito importante de muitas empresas de agronegócio que está atuando no Brasil. Então nós viemos aqui justamente alertar sobre esses riscos, que esses investimentos estão causando impactos negativos nas nossas comunidades indígenas, provocando desmatamento, provocando a morte das nossas lideranças indígenas, provocando várias outras violações aos direitos dos povos indígenas.
Song called Criminal. Thanks again to Alana, our assistant producer, who is assisting us in producing this show, which is Waking Up on WBAI with Juliana and King in the morning. 64 degrees out right now. It's going to be lovely all day long. It's going to heat up as the week continues, so enjoy this brief respite. No heat wave, though. Sometimes I am slightly embarrassed to be a New Yorker, and it's happening more and more now. I used to be like, I'm from New York, and specifically, I'm from Brooklyn. There was like a certain power to it. Now that Trump is our hometown boy, and he's the president, and he's exposing this side of New York that I feel like I don't participate in, but yet it's still my city, I just feel slightly embarrassed, especially as an actor. Oh, you're from New York? Oh, thanks. Thanks. And this next story has me feeling that way as well. So there's a corporation called BlackRock. We all know that we are the finance capital of the world here. BlackRock is the world's largest asset manager. It's a key financer of the agribusiness giants most implicated in the deforestation in the Brazilian Amazon. Now, it's important to note that BlackRock has some offices here right in New York City, 295 Madison, 345 Park Avenue. I don't walk past those very often, but, you know, it's still part of our town. It's still, you can kind of feel the oppression coming out of those fancy buildings. It's almost like it's like right next door to Epstein's house. You know what I mean? It's all one thing. BlackRock is in the top 10 of institutional investors holding shares in the agribusiness giants that are publicly traded. Let's discuss who these agribusiness giants are and where you may have heard their names before. They include Cargill, ADM. Where have you heard those names before? Cargill, ADM. They bring you the news on NPR. These are the groups that fund. You hear it all the time. I wouldn't know. ADM, the something to the world. I can't remember. You know, they give seeds or whatever. Cargill. By the way, JP Morgan Chase is also on that list. Vanguard, HSBC, and Santander. Those banks. And also BNP Paribas, which is a company I'm not sure what they do exactly. But I just want to point out that we at WBAI, we're completely independent. You might not get the bumps between the little song bumps between segments that they have, but you also won't get slightly askance news. Anyway, BlackRock is in the top 10 of institutional investors holding shares in those business giants, those agribusiness giants that we talked about. According to Amazon Watch's 2019 research, BlackRock holds over 2.5 billion of shares in these companies, including more than 5% in ADM and something called Bunge. BlackRock, by the way, supported the Paris Climate Accord, and its CEO, Larry Fink, who I'm sure you've heard about because he is in the news occasionally, has been dubbed the conscience of Wall Street. How vile. I guess Wall Street doesn't have much of a conscience. That's kind of sad if Larry Fink is the conscience of Wall Street. But we're going to talk to Professor Wolff about these, continuing our conversation from yesterday. We're going to talk to Professor Wolff in the second half of the show about these kind of moral washing of corporations. I see we have callers coming in, and we will take those. By the way, BlackRock's statement after the Brazil election appears to celebrate Bolsonaro's win, lauding his commitment to, and this is a quote, to building on the reform agenda put in place over the past 2 years. Reform meaning deregulation, by the way. And since Bolsonaro, and opening up the Amazon, this is what Bolsonaro wants to do. Since his election, BlackRock seems to look with even greater favor on his administration. Fink lauded the significant opportunities to be found for investors in Brazil. Why don't they just change that name to plunderers? Investors has to be like a life-affirming. You can only invest in something that's life-affirming and growth-related. Plunderers. Mm-hmm. Plunder fund. Anyway, that Fink loved the announcement of the expansion of. His name is Fink. That Fink loved the.
I knew you were going to pick up on it. So
hello. Yeah. Anyway, it's important. You can go to this great group, Amazon. They were on here, Amazon Watch, and on the internet, and you can check out where those fires are and what you can do. there are, the U.S. and European companies and financiers profiting off the agriculture business in the Brazilian Amazon need to stop enabling Bolsonaro's Amazon-destroying policies. That is from Moira Bliss. She was on All In with Chris Hayes before he went on vacation. And there is a few things we need BlackRock to do. So I thought maybe we could call them up this morning and ask them to do it, because you could just Google BlackRock and you get their phone number. Michael, can you give this number a call? I'm going to get it for you here, and I'm going to give it out. Let's see. I'm a little nervous. I'm more nervous to call BlackRock than I am to call, Cuomo.
Why?
Because I feel like they're part of the machine that could come right in the store and crush us at any second. I don't know.
No, don't worry. BlackRock will call Cuomo, and then the
machine will come. The phone number for BlackRock, by the way, if you want to call and tell them to cut it, is 212-810-5300. 212-810-5300. This is what we're going to do. We need them to stop funding destruction of the climate and our communities. I called a little bit ago, and I think they might open at 7 a.m., so I had to wait a little bit. What we need them to do is divest from fossil fuel companies that won't change their practices, prioritize fossil fuel and deforestation-free funds, and rigorously push companies it owns to align their goals with the Paris Climate Accord, which it says that they support. We need to escalate pressure on the industry laggards through transparent shareholder engagement. This is what a divestment strategy looks like, and we need them to do it. Could we get them on the phone, or were they not open yet, Michael? Oh, the number again is 212-810-5300. You can call and ask them to do this. 212-810-5300. Oh, it's busy. Maybe people are already calling.
They jumped it.
Let's hope. Or they took the phone off the hook once this campaign started. Anyway, the idea is to give them a call at that number, 212-810-5300, and be a little active today on the consumer side. It's rough because these ADM, Cargill, they got their fingers in everything. J.P. Morgan Chase probably owns the deed to grandmother's house. This is rough. Oh, we have callers calling in, don't we, Michael? Yep. Shall we do that? Caller, you are on the air. Your name and where you calling from?
Hello?
Hi, you're on the air on WBAI.
Oh, thank you. Dee from Manhattan.
Hi, Dee.
I want to say I love this whole agenda of giving people the number and telling them to call and everything. It's great.
Are you going to call?
But at BlackRock?
Yeah, give them a call.
But also, you know what? ADM, Archer Daniel Midland Corporation,
yes.
Right? You know what they do, right? They make these seeds that work one time, and you can't harvest your seeds for the next season, and they make this genetically modified soybean that they feed to the Brazilian cattle, which cattle don't need that. They eat grass, but they give them this American soybean, and they make McDonald's meat.
Ugh. Why can't they just skip the cow altogether and just make the McDonald's burgers out of soy?
Yeah, American soy is terrible, though, the genetically modified soy.
I don't know what kind of burger that would be.
The meat's going to be good.
That's
a good point.
Yeah. You know how Trump is so angry because the British won't buy our genetically modified food anymore. They don't like our genetically modified. They said it makes us fat and sick.
Yeah, well, and also I just read from my good friend Mitchell Cohen, who wrote the book about Monsanto, or who wrote and edited the book about Monsanto, the pesticide, that here in the U.S. it's different than in Europe. First of all, the European Union says, yes, this does cause cancer, right? And then here in the United States, the Trump administration, I don't know. No, I don't think it does. And also the pesticide that is sprayed here is mixed with a surfactant, which makes it go into your body, even faster. It's more toxic. So what is with the U.S.? Are we trying to kill everybody?
It penetrates deeper. Well, Mr. Koch, whose father was Freddie Koch, who started the John Birch Society, a nice guy.
Yeah.
So the apple doesn't fall too far, with the seeds all corrupted. But anyway,
that's
Koch
because
family,
of genetically modified seeds.
We genetically modified the Koch brothers, and they became like Frankenstein.
The Koch brother got cancer from his own fossil. He's a fossil fool who got cancer
from his own stuff.
Capitalism.
Oh,
capitalism. Yeah.
You're the best. Hey,
That's what
thanks
I
for that
call
call.
it.
I appreciate it. ADM calls themselves the supermarket to the world. Isn't that crazy? D, appreciate your call. We have other callers calling in. Caller, you are on the air. Your name and where are you calling from? Oh, dial tone. That must be BlackRock calling us back. We're not going to listen to you. Oh, caller, you are on the air. Your name and where you're calling from. Hello? Oh, I don't know what's going on. Let's try the last one. Let's give it a go, and then we'll go to break. Then we'll come back with Professor Richard Wolff. Caller, your name and your where are you calling from? You're on the air.
Ms. Solana, good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Hi.
I've called before. This is Christian from the Bronx.
Hi, Christian. How you doing?
Yeah. So two things. I always knew New York water, and especially Jersey water, was always filthy. Even from growing up in the 80s, like if you looked at the East River from a distance, it always looked brown.
I hope they're not taking our drinking water from the East River.
When I was growing up, and sometimes brown water would come out the pipe.
Ugh.
We were under the impression that they were cleaning the pipes.
Gross.
Yep.
I don't know. They say they. Now, who's the they? I don't know. That New York City has some of the cleanest drinking water. I can't imagine that that's true once it gets to your sink. I mean, even the pipes in our house are 150 years old.
It does. You have to go further upstate. The water's clean, like Niagara Falls. That water is probably drinkable.
I don't know. Love Canal was up that way. They're poisoning everything. I don't know if there's going to be any real clean drinkable water anywhere.
Well, Christian, the problem is that the water comes from pretty good sources upstate, but by the time they put the purification, quote unquote, the solvents in it, that in Newark's case actually leached the lead out of it. So the water was okay until it got to the attempts to clean it.
Yeah, because everything from Port of Newark and the Meadowlands, all that water is filthy. It's just brown. That's why I wouldn't even.
What do you do?
I think
you drink bottled. What do? You get a filter?
I mean, I work in food service, so I'm always at work most of the time. So I drink bottled water. At home, what I do, I let the water run for 10 minutes. And I put it inside. I just chill it, put it inside the freezer.
It's expensive, man. Bottled water. Plus, bottled water, if it's in a plastic bottle, you're getting plastic in your system. So you can't win. I mean, we are in some serious trouble environmentally. I've been looking around recently thinking, oh my gosh, look at this.
And with regard to the Amazon, the Amazon has been the model for everything. It was always in the movies and stuff like that. It's been the model for and entertainment and stuff like that. And that movie, a movie that Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, had started a while back, The Rundown. You had the fight scene with that guy, and they're swinging through
the jungle,
like Tarzan's. Yeah. So this guy also now I don't know why would he want to do something like that. The Amazon is the model.
Yeah, for healing and medicine.
Yeah.
And also, it's kind of hard to think about these, 80,000 fires burning. It's not just burning trees. These are burning monkeys. These are burning not elephant, but these are burning animals. These are burning birds. These are burning our, the human beings' heritage of healing, not to mention actual human beings that live there. This is not, have you ever tried to outrun on foot a forest fire? I don't think it's going to happen. Hey, thanks for the call. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you listening. You're listening to Waking Up 99.5 FM in New York City. When we come back from this musical break, we are going to have Professor Richard Wolff with us. So stay tuned.
Nós temos que dar basta nisso. Eles já devastaram o Brasil todo, agora estão subindo para a Amazônia e vai devastar a Amazônia também, sabe? Nós não podemos deixar isso acontecer porque o planeta todo vai sofrer as consequências, não só os brasileiros, mas todos do planeta.
hope we're talking about a revolution. And I have to say that's a beautiful song. And Bernie plays it on the campaign trail because when I was covering him, that's what he plays. That and a little Neil Young. We're coming to America. No, he doesn't play that one. By the way, Bernie, as we heard in the newscast at the top of the other hour, people are...
Feel the burn.
They're feeling the burn.
When you give tax breaks to billionaires and refuse to raise the minimum wage, that's extremism.
Feel the burn.
When you deny the right of workers to come together in collective bargaining, that's extremism.
Feel the burn.
When you tell a woman that she cannot control her own body, that's extremism.
That's Bernie. They're feeling the burn.
I got one more to add.
Yeah.
When you're Archer's Daniel Midland and you invest in the rainforest and the people start to light up them, feel the burn.
Well, that's no good. The rainforest is on fire.
Yeah, that's the whole point there.
No. We're going to have to get you some joke writing lessons. I'm sorry. You can school me in the law.
All right.
I'll teach you.
At least give me a drum beat.
I got you.
Drum roll.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
That's
There
my
we
man.
go.
Okay. As reported at the top of the hour, Senator Warren has 20% of the vote in the latest poll that, sometimes show nothing. But Bernie has 20% and Biden has 19%. Now, they're reporting this all over the place, including The Hill and the New York Times. And I think that's what's more important because I'm always looking for what messaging are they putting out? What are they putting out? Not necessarily what does the poll show and who's winning in the horse race at this moment in time, but what are the media reporting and how are they reporting it? And what is the angle? What is the angle to report that our most progressive and even, Bernie is beyond progressive, I would say, because he wants to work outside the system to reconstruct the system that we have. What's the back end? What's the goal of reporting that? I'm always wondering. I'm always thinking about it. Warren. Now, if Warren and Bernie got together, 20 plus 20 is 40. That's over the top. I think that would be great. I don't care who's at the top. I'm voting no matter what. I'm voting for a Democrat no matter what because I feel that if I don't vote for anyone, I'm voting for Trump, and I cannot do that. Anyway, moving on to our next. I have a blank look from King's like, no, well. As we discussed yesterday, by the way, some corporations and CEOs, as part of the Business Roundtable, came together and decided they would take into account all of their stakeholders in the decision-making, not just their shareholders, stakeholders being, the rest of us. But as it turns out, there's already a movement of corporations working to make that happen, and their plan has some teeth. The B Corporation movement has gotten legislation passed that legally requires them to deliver value to all of their stakeholders. But are these kinds of laws enough to counteract the ills of capitalism? And also, didn't you once have to actually do something for the public good in order to become incorporated? All these questions and more we will be asking our guest who is here with us today, Professor Richard and Dr. Richard Wolff. He is the host of Economic Update, Friday at 6:30 right here on WBAI, which is also syndicated in almost over 70 radio stations nationwide. Marxian economist and professor of economics emeritus. Professor Wolff, thanks for joining us on the program today.
Glad to be here, Juliana.
Can I just call you like America's top socialist now? Because you won. You're out there. You're even on Fox.
I didn't know there was an election, but sure, why not?
Professor Wolff, what can you tell us about the fact that these corporations are starting to try to look a little more concerned about society? We talked a little bit about this yesterday, that our guest yesterday from Truth Out, I'm sure you know him, William Rivers Pitt, said that they are afraid of the pitchforks. Is that your take on it also?
Yes, I think there's no question that that's basically what the Business Roundtable does. I think people listening to BAI would understand this in a way that is a compliment to them, that the criticism of capitalism, the criticism of corporations and CEOs as being driven above all else by making more money, using the enormous wealth and power they have to get ever more money, even across the kind of collapse we had in 2008 and 9. That, the pitchforks are coming, and they want to do, as usual, the minimum. So they talk to their PR advisors and their public relations specialists, and they said, here, you're big and powerful. You can get a lot of media play. Why don't you get together, have a meeting, and with great solemnity, as if anyone took this seriously, tell everybody about how you're really concerned about the larger issues, and you're going to be respectful of all the people that are affected by what you do, and not be out there purely money grubbing, which is what the world thinks of you. My own feeling is, look, it's a good sign, because they're seeing what Bernie is saying, they're seeing what Elizabeth Warren is saying, they're seeing what the squad with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, they understand, because that's their job, that they've got a new set of problems, because that movement is not only growing, it's growing fast. You know, it's been really a few years since it became possible for someone who's a socialist to stick his or her head above the horizon and not be attacked. They get it, and so they're going to do the minimum. They're going to say something. They're going to give lip service to the idea that they're going to be or do more than they've done. But until they do real concrete things, until they help people across the board, customers, workers, and all the rest, this is just PR. This is just packaging. For anyone to take this seriously beyond that would be to fall into the trap of misunderstanding the ad for the reality.
Professor Wolff, what is a B Corporation movement? Can you explain it?
Yeah, absolutely. Here's what happened. Some years ago, there were decent, good people who got in charge of corporations.
Wow.
I remember one of them being, Ben and Jerry, the folks who make the ice cream and all the rest. And they from the beginning had a different attitude because of who they were and the kind of backgrounds they came from. And they wanted corporations to be about more than making money. And so they discovered they had a legal problem. Under the law, there have been precedents in which shareholders of a company could go to court against their own company, that is the CEO and the management of the company, and the attack in the court would run like this. Your job is to make more money, which is why I bought shares of stock. You are helping workers, or you're taking care of the environment, or you're decently equating men and women when you pay wages. We're not interested in those issues. We didn't buy shares of stock to do social good. We bought shares of stock to make money. And it turned out that the court said that's a valid argument. It's the same logic that gave Milton Friedman, the professor of economics at Chicago, the Nobel Prize when he articulated the notion that the only obligation of a corporation is to make money for its owners. Okay.
What happened to the peace part? I guess he got the Nobel Prize without the peace part.
Exactly. That's right. It wasn't that kind of Nobel Prize. It was the Nobel Prize in economics, which is always monopolized by pretty much right-wing folks, and it has been. But who should be surprised? Nobel was the producer of dynamite in that country, and so he was hardly a progressive. Anyway, here's the idea of the B Corporation. They wanted to be safe from shareholder suits, so they established another kind of corporation, a B Corporation, which from the get-go is legally entitled to pursue multiple objectives, not just profit maximization or shareholder distributions. And so they're protected by the law from being sued for doing more. But notice, they're not required to do more. They're just being protected in the event that some shareholder thinks they're doing that. And number two, here's the real democratic issue. If you want corporations to do things for all the stakeholders, the workers, the customers, and not just the shareholders, then you have to put the workers and the customers in a position of decision-making. Otherwise, you're just playing with us.
Yeah.
The way it is now, the corporation, exactly the way it was before, whether it's B or not, is in the hands of the shareholders and the boards of directors those shareholders elect. They can do whatever they want. Workers cannot sue them. Customers cannot sue them because they're not being taken care of properly. If you want corporations to serve all of those who depend on them, then they all have to be on the board of directors. They all have to have the same standing that shareholders do, and neither the B corporations nor any other kind of corporation has even dared think like that, let alone do anything.
Do you think there's a chance these most powerful CEOs might sign on to something like a B Corp demand?
Yeah, I think that's where they're probably going to go, that the ad that the B Corporation people took out in the New York Times and that got some play is something the roundtable people will consider. And if they can't get enough people to shut up about their horrible behavior by making this statement, well, then they'll have to go the next step and become a B corporation to show that they mean business. But all of that is very nice posturing, very nice legal protection, but none of it guarantees that they will do anything. You know, we don't agree, you, me, and the next person, about what exactly it is a corporation ought to do for its workers. Workers don't see that the same way a board of directors does. So if the workers don't have any real power, if it's still left in the hands of the board of directors to decide, quote unquote, what a stakeholder wants or needs, you're going to get a very screwy idea about what happens in a corporation, because you haven't taken the real step of making the workers and the customers part of the power structure that decides what corporations do.
Is this a way for them to avoid sort of or placate organized labor, or just avoid having to deal with organized labor and saying we're doing something, but we're still going to try to pass right to work laws in different states?
Absolutely. They will continue to do what they've always done. Here's a lesson from history. Back in the 1950s and 60s, there was a very similar movement to this, and it was called, quote unquote, I kid you not, I didn't make this up, the soulful corporation. There was a movement of corporations to say, hey, we're not just about making money. We are real live people just like you and me, and we have souls. And the corporation can behave and will behave in a soulful manner. It has a soul that cares about the community and all the rest of it. All of that came to nothing. No one ever challenged them to go beyond the words. And that's where we are with this latest version of the same idea.
So I take it that your first call or your first demand or preference would be that instead of taking on this B status, that the people who are involved also become shareholders, including community members could become shareholders.
Absolutely. Or even if you don't make them shareholders, change the organization of the corporation so it is run by the stakeholders. For example, the workers elect X% of whoever makes the decisions. The customers who depend on the quality and the quantity of the output, they elect. You know, you have in Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Food Co-op, it lets the customer play a role in the decisions of the business.
It forces you. It doesn't let.
That's a good one.
I'm sorry.
Where's that bell? I want to hear. Let's hear that bell again.
Which bell? This one?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I had a follow-up.
Sorry, I'm a member. It's
I had
rough.
a follow-up with you, and that is that I went through the questionnaire at bcorporation.net, and I was just punching it in just to see where it would take me. Right. And when you get to the state part, it just says something like, you know, your state. If your state allows this, you can move forward. Does New York allow this and the other states within our listening area?
That's a good question, and I apologize. I do not know the answer.
We'll find that out, yeah.
Yeah, you can find that out. It is a movement. I would guess that a state like New York is more likely than not to have agreed to this sort of thing. The Northeast, the far West Coast, you know, the way this country works, those are the places... the coasts where this kind of thing gets moved forward. The middle is usually slower.
This seems like moving the deck chairs on the Titanic. Do you think it would? I mean, do you think it would adjudicate for some of capitalism's ills?
I don't see it, frankly. I think if you look at B corporations that have actually been formed, Most of them have done next to nothing.
So
a few of them have taken some steps. But since it's all at the discretion of the same old board of directors and the same old shareholders, whether they do anything and what they do and how they understand the stakeholders and the stakes they have, you really can't be surprised that so far it's 99% puffery and PR and very little substantive change.
What a bummer.
I wish I could give you different news, but you know, if you want
that's good.
If you want to make believe that it really matters,
we can read
go
the Times.
To, the mainstream media, they'll do that for
Exactly. So what's coming up on Economic Update this week?
Well, I'm bringing back my colleague, Dr. Harriet Fraud, to talk
we love
about
her.
Personal issues. I mean, the economic crisis of this country, which is not going away, is now 10 years into a depression since the collapse of 2008 and 9. I know we're full of hype about recovery, but the truth is families, working people's families, are more pinched and squeezed and troubled than ever before. And I want to give more play in our program to working out, letting people see what those problems are. And there's a goal here, which is to make people understand that the personal crises they face in their relationships, in their families, in their own feelings about themselves are not always, quote unquote, their own fault, that they have every right to be angry at a system which squeezes them from every side, which attacks them with rising prices and an insecure job that they can't even figure out what 1 month to the next, where they're going to work and how they're going to work, and all of these pressures that make life more difficult, and the irony in our society that we claim to be a society given to family values when we're making the whole concept of family more difficult.
It's also just white family values. We don't want Latinos coming in who actually have some semblance of family values. We don't want that. God forbid they should get a position of power with Castro, et cetera, Julian Castro. Professor Wolff, thanks for joining us on the program. What I would like, we've had calls in. We'll be doing completely different show about a completely different issue, and we have calls saying, "Hey, we really want you to let us call in when Professor Wolff is on the air." And I'm wondering if perhaps after your show, I probably should ask you this off the air, but there's a reason I ask you on the air. Perhaps at some point we could have you and Harriet in here and just open up the phone lines. That would be just really wonderful.
I would be glad to talk with Harriet Fraud about that, but I think it's a great idea, and we'd be up for it.
Great. We'll wait till your show is out, and we'll for this week, because just talking about those personal issues are so important. And every time I speak with you and Harriet, and the reason I was so attracted to your work is that it kind of lets you slightly off the hook. Why didn't I achieve the American dream?
Right.
It's not your fault.
Stop blaming yourself. And understand that if it's not good to blame the victim when it's another person, it's not good to blame the victim when it's you yourself as well.
Thank you so much for being on the show again, Dr. Wolff. And we will talk to you off the air about setting that up, and then we will talk to you again in 2 weeks. You can listen to it.
All right, very good. Thanks for inviting me, and it's a pleasure every time to talk with you both.
That's so nice that he says that, because I know he goes on Fox News. So I'm wondering if he says to like Sheb Smith, "It's a pleasure." I'm assuming not. Gosh, you're listening to Waking Up. I'm Juliana Forlano in the studio with King Downing. We are about to get on our line Jack Devine, right, from Revolutions Per Minute, which is our 5 p.m. show here on WBAI. Hey, listen, if you cannot wake up this early,
forget about it.
You can listen to our show anytime on WBAI.org. We have the archives. We are available in perpetuity, forever and ever. I wonder if my old show is still on there. It's the Juliana Forlano show. I'll have to go and look. We had more sound effects. Let's just say there was more sound effects. All right, joining us now from Revolutions Per Minute, Jack Devine. Hi, Jack. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you doing?
Good. I'm looking forward to hearing what's on your show this afternoon.
Well, I wish we could come in with a big sound effect like you were just talking
Wait,
about.
I'll make one for you. What's the show? And I'll put something on there.
We are talking about we're talking about labor and the DSA's relationship to the labor movement, as well as, a brief overview of labor history in the United States, and then we're going to kind of move into the current conditions.
Oh, wait, I have a sound effect for you. The current conditions, right?
Very exciting.
Yes. No, that's terrific. What do you have a guest on? I'm sorry if I missed you saying that already.
Yes, we have two guests, with Gia Lee and Kevin Prosen, who are both members of the Moore Reform Caucus of the UFT. They've run in the recent elections. They've been organizing within the teachers union. And they're DSA members as well. So they're going to kind of share that perspective. We're going to talk about this recent upsurge in strikes. I mean, it's been particularly strong among teachers, but it's really spread to other sectors, and there's been a lot of organizing going on. It's very exciting. You have the over 20,000 workers in the CWA that are striking the Southeast right now, which is one of the largest actions in the Southeast in decades, a place that is notorious for anti-labor politics and really ruthless tactics by the bosses. So
it's funny, we don't have a Pacifica station down there. We need to have a Pacifica station that reaches from Georgia to South Carolina to North Carolina to Tennessee and all those states down there.
That was going to be one of the messages to the king, because when I went down south this weekend, the CWA was on all the local news, and we could see the strikers along the highways.
Wow, they had them on the real news?
What's that?
Like the actual news?
The local news. It was a big deal down there because it doesn't happen that often, right? Right, Jack?
Yeah,
in the South?
It's very rare for there to be a major labor action in the South, because I mean, there's so much history. I mean, you can take it back to the most brutal labor conditions that they had under chattel slavery, but it's kind of and always a struggle to organize labor down south. And so it's very encouraging to see this big action.
Well, we're looking forward to hearing about that and all the other things you mentioned on your show, Revolutions Per Minute, the 5 p.m. show here on WBAI this afternoon. Everybody tune in. I certainly will be. Thanks for being on the show, Jack. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's wonderful. Hey, that was our show for today. Tomorrow we're having a show, 7 o'clock. 7 a.m. King's going to be here. Also, Alexander Kaufman's going to be here. We have a lot of environmental stuff, not just the Amazon, to talk about. And also Dr. Kellerman doing a follow-up because some of y'all's asked me to follow up a little bit on that Lyme disease issue. And Dr. Kellerman does a lot of treating of Lyme disease. He wrote me, said he'd like to share what he knows with the audience. So I said, sure, come on. Let's do it. Public service. All that and more, of course. Hey, thanks a lot for listening. I really enjoy being with you all in the morning.
It's great. Stay with us.
Have a great one.